From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, August the 24th, 2022. As talks with Iran reportedly get closer to a final stage, including a report this afternoon that Iran said it had received a response from the United States to the final text of the proposed agreement and was reviewing it, Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid made Israel's position once again very clear. Lapid addressed a briefing for foreign correspondents today, reiterating that Israel is firmly against a return to the Iran deal and why.
On the table right now is a bad deal. It would give Iran $100 billion a year. This money will not build schools or hospitals. This is $100 billion a year that will be used to undermine stability in the Middle East and spread terror around the globe. Israel is not against any agreement. We are against this agreement because it is a bad one.
Lapid stressed that the U.S. is and will remain Israel's closest ally, but he said we have made it clear to everyone if a deal is signed, it does not obligate Israel. We will act to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear state. We are not prepared to live with a nuclear threat above our heads from an extremist, violent Islamist regime. This will not happen because we will not let it happen. Meanwhile, Israel's Defense Minister Benny Gantz is set to travel to Washington tomorrow to discuss the Iran issue. The Times of Israel citing Gantz saying Iran's rush toward a nuclear weapon must be significantly pushed back. Israel's National Security Advisor Eyal Hulata was at the White House yesterday to discuss the same issue with his U.S. counterpart Jake Sullivan. NSC spokesperson Adrienne Watson saying that Mr. Sullivan underscored President Biden's steadfast commitment to preserve and strengthen Israel's capability to deter its enemies and to defend itself by itself against any threat or combination of threats, including from Iran and Iranian-backed proxies, and our commitment to ensure Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. The IDF suspended 3 Israeli soldiers serving in the religious Netzach Yehuda battalion who were caught on video beating 2 Palestinian men whom they had arrested in the West Bank. IDF Chief of Staff Aviv Kochavi called it a very serious incident that causes disgust and is completely against the values of the IDF. The fighters in the event do not deserve to be fighters. The incident will be thoroughly investigated by the commanders and will be investigated by the military police. We will bring justice to those involved. Kochavi saying there is and will be no place in the IDF for this type of behavior. The American Jewish Committee is calling out Minnesota gubernatorial candidate Scott Jensen again for using comparisons between coronavirus rules and Nazism. First doing so back in April when he compared steps taken to prevent the spread of COVID-19 to Kristallnacht, where Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues were destroyed. And yesterday, the AJC noted in a report by the Minnesota Reformer, repeated his sentiments, saying, I think it's a legitimate comparison. The AJC, who has called on Jensen to stop his Holocaust comparisons, today tweeted, instead of acknowledging the vile nature of his comments, Scott Jensen doubled down on his absurd comparison of COVID restrictions to Kristallnacht. Dr. Jensen clearly needs to be educated on the reality of the Holocaust to understand there is no comparison to its horror. The New York Police Department's Hate Crimes Task Force is investigating an attack in Williamsburg, Brooklyn on Sunday, where 2 Hasidic Jews were assaulted and sprayed with a fire extinguisher. One was punched in the nose and said he believed they were targeted because they are Jewish. The task force citing video from ABC reporter Safan Kim, who notified the task force of the incident. And the task force is investigating it as a hate crime pattern, sharing a photo of the suspect and asking for the public's help. Israel's former ambassador to the United Nations, Ron Prosor, has a new post. He is the country's new ambassador to Germany. Prosor presented his credentials to federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier on Monday. Professor began his diplomatic career in Germany in 1986 when he was spokesman for Israel's mission to West Germany in Bonn. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, August the 24th. At 7 o'clock, it's Talmud study. At 7:30, we remember the deadly bombing of the AMIA Jewish Center in Buenos Aires. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Esther Wachsman, mother of slain IDF soldier Nachshon on L'chaim. At 10, women writers share how their immigrant experiences impact their work. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, August the 24th, 2022. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay well.